friends, thanks so much for tuning into my channel. If you are a first-time viewer, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. So today's video, we are going to tackle forgiveness. If you happen to follow my community page, you've seen me drop a few nuggets here and there about forgiveness. And I told y'all we was gonna talk about it. And so here we are. It took me a little while to get here, but here I am. And it's going to be good. This may actually take a few sessions. It may take more than one video for us to get through this. But I wanna tackle it because it is so important. And what it really means to forgive, what it looks like in a healthy, spiritual, mental, and emotional space. It may be very different than maybe what some of us were taught. Definitely very important topic that could be relevant to all aspects, all walks of life. Anything that impacts our relationship with God, our relationships with ourselves, and our relationships with others. Within your business, within your family, within intimate partner relationships, with your children, your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, technically are your neighbors. They are fellow citizens of planet Earth. And so those who we are around, because we are human and we are flawed, offenses will take place. And because offenses will take place, we will be tasked to forgive. Because oftentimes we ourselves may be the offender. We are tasked to forgive. And so we want to look at what does that really mean. And a lot of the things I will reference today were explained to me so well quite a few moons ago, but not that many, by one of my professors when I attended seminary, and his name is Dr. Larry Wagner. And he was my professor for family, marriage, and premarital counseling. And all of us who took that class, we all know when I say we were given a literal gold mine for life when we walked into that room in the form of a notebook that is maybe like 120, I think 120 pages or something like that. And within that notebook was just such a breath of life for all of us as we studied the different strategies or things to understand to help other people. Ooh, we all were like, oh my gosh, I do that, or I experienced that, but I never had words for it. I knew it was something a little off about it, but now I see like where that comes. This book is a gold mine. This notebook is a gold mine. So many tools that I know for me from 2016 when I graduated from seminary on, from when I started the same month that I graduated. Was my first like freelance LLC doing coaching and counseling for women. And from that time all the way up until now, every client that I have had, whether it was some kind of personal development coaching or whether it was some kind of like business startup type coaching, or even just like someone who's working through their own personal development as it relates to identity, I have used something from that notebook for every single person that I have ever worked with. Whether they knew it or not, whether I actually used the complete tool that he gave us in those notebooks, or whether it was just an understanding that I received from studying that notebook. I'm saying all that to say that in 2016, Dr. Wagner published a book. All of the things, most of the things that were in that notebook were published in this book. It's called Help Me Help Others. It is available on Amazon. I am not sure if it is available in digital format, but if you go to Amazon, you'll see. If I find a Kindle link for it, I will post that in the description along with a link for the paperback. But the book is called Help Me Help Others, and most of what I will talk about today with forgiveness you can find in this book. So shout out to Dr. Wagner, shout out to CIU. When I tell you, there are not, I can't think of one client that I've had that something did not come up that I did not go running for my Wagner's toolbox, because it's so practical. And it gives such a deep foundational knowledge. So that's kind of like my book chat for people who are looking for tools to help others, whether you are doing ministry work or whether you are a coach or a counselor for couples, whether you are someone who is working with empowering women, if you are someone who is building a community for men to have healthy relationships and to be able to relate well with people of the opposite sex, including their wives and daughters and sisters and all of that good stuff. I'm telling you, this is a good place to start if you need some tools that will really help you break down some concepts. A lot of it is from a biblical background, a biblical foundation. But a lot of it, we can find everything in the Bible anyway. But a lot of it is broken down into very, very layman's terms. It's not like a heavy psychology style book. It's not a heavy theology style book per se, but it does address the psychology and theology of human relationships. And so we're going to talk about forgiveness today. So I feel like it's a smart place to start with the fact that when it comes to forgiveness, most of us have been taught that you're supposed to forgive, that there is no exception to the rule when it comes to forgiving someone. And giving forgiveness definition is important. There's 120 some odd times in the New Testament where forgiveness or the word forgive are used, and where the meaning is to let go, to release. And so oftentimes, to tell someone that certain things were done to you and you're just supposed to just let it go and just release, even though that is technically what you are going to end up needing to do, understanding that there is a judicial aspect, a psychological aspect, and a relational aspect to forgiveness. That is very important, because we don't want to give people conditions to say like this is something that you don't got to forgive that. Now that, no, you don't forgive. But at the same time, we don't want to just be telling people, oh, you have to forgive. And we have yet to even acknowledge that a wrong was done. Or we do not allow people to acknowledge that a wrong was done. And so that's why it's important for us to look at the fact that there are aspects to forgiveness. Now, I heard another minister who I highly respect say most recently that forgiveness is not a process, that forgiveness is a one and done. And while by faith we can forgive, and even when we don't feel like we've forgiven, we can still confidently say that by faith I have released this, I have let it go. There are aspects of forgiveness that we have to understand so that we know how to move forward. Some people are not in a space where they understand that forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean that there is a relational restoration or reconciliation. Some people are not in a space where they are able to realize that because you didn't allow yourself to experience psychological forgiveness, if you didn't understand that needed to happen, you are allowing for reconciliation in a situation that is dangerous or harmful to you. Or there are people who, because they do not understand the part that God plays when it comes to the judicial forgiveness aspect, they will hold a grudge if you blink at them the wrong way as a mode of protection or a way of staying in control that is actually building a wall between them and any of the healthy people that God sends their way. This forgiveness thing is something that we need to dig into. It is not enough anymore for a lot of people, especially in the world that we live in, where there are so many powers of darkness and rulers in high places, that we are fighting in this spiritual war, that if we are going to minister to people, everyone's going to have their areas where maybe they are more informed or better able to articulate or anointed to address. So for me, I can listen to someone say, forgiveness is not a process. You just need to decide to forgive, and you give it to God, and supernaturally the Lord can, heal your soul, and you can release that thing. I fully believe that. And I can hear that and not feel condemned if by chance I am in a space where I am still walking through the psychological forgiveness aspect, because I have been informed enough about forgiveness. I have been challenged with some things when it comes to forgiving other people and myself, enough to know that I need God, and that it is a faith, an act of faith, to forgive someone when your emotions do not agree with you, that you forgive them. Or when I want to do a spiritual bypass because I just don't even want to process what was done to me, to the point where I don't allow myself to walk through the psychological aspect and suppress. That's not healthy either. So all of that to say, it's very important to understand that there are 3 ways that we can view forgiveness as a human experience. All right. And the first aspect that we're going to cover is judicial forgiveness. Again, if you check out that book, it will walk you through in even more depth. The first aspect we will talk about is judicial forgiveness. And that is whereby there's a reckoning. It comes to acknowledgement, whether the person acknowledges it, the offender acknowledges it or not, that an offense has been done. And when that person is able to acknowledge that an offense has been done and repent or ask for forgiveness and acknowledge that, then that's where in the spiritual world, God can forgive. And in the natural world, if it is something that is legal in nature, there are different scenarios that could play out. But it starts with acknowledging the fact that an offense has been done. And as people who are believers, especially young women, I see a lot, and I've experienced myself, the less aware we are of unhealthy behaviors that people may display about us, the more accepting we are of things that are not acceptable. We are not even able to properly address the judicial aspect of forgiveness. So while it may not be always in our power to decide what is the consequence going to be for an offense that has taken place against us, it is our responsibility to acknowledge that an offense has taken place. Now, if you don't know an offense has taken place, you don't know. But when we look at abuse cycles and just patterns of codependency and so forth, there's oftentimes situations where a lot of denial takes place, and there's actually no acknowledgement of the offense. Or maybe the person who's been violated or offended is trying to acknowledge what has been done, but the offender denies them that. The offender is not willing to say, you know what, that was wrong, or yes, I did do that. Or where people in authority are not even willing to face the fact that an offense has taken place. So if we're telling people before we can even acknowledge, or if they are coming to a place of realizing, say for example, a person who is an adult now, but they are really just in a space where things are coming to the surface for them, where a major offense has taken place in their life, and they're just getting to a place where they're even able to acknowledge it. And before they can even really acknowledge it, we tell them, oh, you need to forgive. You're holding a grudge. You shouldn't be, you should, that was 20 years ago. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who's rehearsing the same offense over and over and over and over. You've heard the story 158,000 times, and they swear up and down that they've forgiven, but yet and still, they're still telling you the story. There is a place where a person has to understand judicial forgiveness, that the offense has to be acknowledged. It doesn't necessarily have to be acknowledged by the offender, but it does need to be acknowledged. And we are not in control in most cases over what the consequence of that thing is. So, for example, a person could damage your property, damage something that belongs to you. And because you're not worried, you know that God will provide for you, you're in a healthy space, it doesn't make you anxious, you're able to forgive the person. Well, you forgiving the person does not absolve them of the consequence, especially if it is an item that is insured. So when you call that person's insurance and your insurance company gets involved, well, you don't get to decide what the consequence is going to be, because you don't have that particular authority. When you signed on with that insurance company, or they signed on with whatever insurance company, you said, when we have these types of accidents and so forth and so on, well, this is who we're going to call on, and this is who we are going to trust to make these decisions. So you may not get to decide if that person pays you $5,000 for damaging your property or not. You might say, oh my gosh, it's okay, but you have to report it, because that is an item that you are paying for, and that that is also insured through you. All right, so it may not be in your hands in a particular situation to decide what is the consequence. You might forgive the person for wrecking your property, but they still may have the consequence of paying you $5,000 to $7,000 in order to have your property repaired. That's a good example of judicial forgiveness. Likewise, when an offense has taken place, it starts with acknowledging that the offense has taken place. There are all types of offenses. Some of them make a person unsafe to be around you, or to be around your children, or to be around people that you are charged to protect, people that you are charged to cover. You may forgive that person fully, but still a consequence of their offense may be that they're not allowed to be around your children, or it may be that they can't be around you because they're not safe, right? So when we think about judicial forgiveness, that is always a part of it, because an acknowledgement that an offense has taken place has to happen, and then a decision has to be made on what the consequence will be. Even if we decide to release that person who damaged the property, none of us are going to report it to our insurance company. We're not going to make a police report. You have, let that consequence go. But you still have no control over the fact that in damaging your property, that person damaged their own property. You don't have any control over that consequence for them, because they're going to end up having to report it to their insurance company, or they're going to have to pay for their own damage out of their pocket. All right. Same thing when it comes to relationships. And I think this is very relevant when it comes to like intimate partner relationships, male-female relationships. Sometimes, a person can do something and you are very forgiving and you're very empathetic and you're very willing to say, people are human and so forth and so on. But if you are in a healthy space and you have healthy boundaries, you're able to say, I forgive that person. You're able to acknowledge, like, what that person said to me or what they did to me was very toxic. That was very unhealthy. They did not treat me with regard. You can say that and still know, like, but you know what? I release them, I let them go. I'm not going to rehearse that over and over, but I am going to acknowledge that that was incorrect. That was improper. Um, but the consequence of that may be, well, I can't be in close relationship with that person if that is how they are going to treat me. The consequence could be, you know what? I forgive that, and I can make a sound decision that that person can be in my life, but maybe they will be a front porch person. They may no longer be able to be a kitchen table person. Also, a great example that I love that I'm not sure if that's in Dr. Wagner's book or not, but I love the way he explained that as an analogy for us in our notes when it comes to basically your inner circle people. But, I feel like inner circle is not a thorough enough explanation, because there is just so many levels to that when it comes to trusting people with aspects of our lives for most of us. So, a person may be, you don't wish them any harm, you've acknowledged that what was done was incorrect, whether that person acknowledges it or not. But you can still say, you know what? I can still be cordial with that person. I can still relate with them. I can still talk with them. We can still laugh. We maybe even could go out for coffee here and there. But there would be someone that if they showed up on the property, they would be a front porch person. We could sit out on the front porch and sip lemonade and converse, and it will be all good. But they may not be someone who, whenever they show up, they come in the house and they sit at the table and that kind of thing. So judicial forgiveness allows us to acknowledge that an offense has taken place. A judicial forgiveness is also the place where an acknowledgement of an offense is appropriate. It may or may not always happen. And acknowledging an offense and being repentant and making a turn and saying, you know what, this is not the way to be, and I commit to not being that way anymore towards you, or vice versa, could have an impact on what the consequence is of the offense taking place in the first place. How that offense could impact further relationship with that person. All right, so much more I can say about that. I feel like I actually need to do different videos for the 3, and I will. But just to get started, understand that a huge part of forgiveness is the facts, the acknowledgement that an offense has taken place. All right, and then the second aspect is psychological forgiveness. Psychological forgiveness. That is the place where oftentimes a person would say, you know what, I prayed, I asked God to help me. I do forgive that person. I'm letting them go. I'm not going to rehearse such and such and such over and over with them. But it doesn't feel like I forgave. When I see them, I still feel away. When I see their name, when I see their picture, when they talk to me like how we used to talk before, I still feel away. That is the psychological aspect of forgiveness. And just because you're feeling away doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't forgiven the person. That's something that we have to dig into a little bit deeper. But the psychological aspect of forgiveness does deal with the fact that certain offenses impact us psychologically to different degrees. And there will be a different walking out of forgiveness when it comes to different things. It's really a deep thing, because there are things that, and I said this to someone today, actually, because I was thinking on conceptualizing forgiveness and how, like, sometimes, a person could do or say something to you, and if you are an empathetic person, you can feel shame for the person, because what they have done or what they have said or whatever, even if they don't acknowledge it, is shameful. And even though the offense is being done or the thing is being said to you, you feel ashamed for them. And sometimes when we feel ashamed for people, we do this whole bypass thing where we can't even process it. Like, we can't even process. Like, you didn't do that to me. You didn't even say that to me. And So that's where sometimes things get lodged on a psychological level. Things get lodged, like they don't even come to our subconscious mind. So we're not able to process them at the time. And so that's where sometimes things will come back years later. It's in different situations where emotions are involved. Sometimes so many things happen that you only remember certain aspects, but it could be 10 years later and something will, you be like, oh my God, I forgot about that. And like you were so focused on some other aspect of it that you didn't remember a certain thing that was done. And so that thing comes to mind, something may rise up in you, and you have to deal with the feelings of that, the thoughts and the feelings that come with the memory of what was done to you. And for some things, the memory is not just in your mind. For some people, they have physical memory. Sometimes for some people, they have a child that is a memory of a tumultuous time with someone that they've had to forgive. For some people, they have physical pain or physical injuries, different disorders, or just all types of things come with offenses that have taken place in our lives. And so psychological forgiveness, that is where we could say that it is a process, because although forgiveness itself is done, it's a done deal. When you decide to forgive, you may have to remind yourself that something has been forgiven and what that really means to you, and how you can move forward. So it just depends on what you mean when you say forgiveness is a process. I can forgive you fully right now in this very moment and still have to understand the psychological aspect of releasing that. And I do believe in deliverance. I do believe in prayer. And I do believe that we can pray and speak certain things over our minds, over all of the places where memories are lodged in our bodies. For those of you who know anything about trauma, or maybe you've read some literature, or maybe you've gone through some therapy on your own, one book that comes to mind is The Body Keeps the Score. When things happen to us that are traumatic, or things that are very hurtful or very painful for whatever reason, it lives in our cells. And so I love what I heard one minister saying recently about just like you speak to certain, you may, if you believe in the ministry of deliverance and you believe in the power of prayer, you know, how the Bible talks about if you have just a mustard seed of faith, you can speak to a mountain and say, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea. The impact of certain experiences on our cells. You may be someone who believes that we can pray and we can call those things to not impact our cells anymore. I think that is a very real thing. And I think that we need to understand that is actually a part of that is psychological forgiveness. So I could get way deeper. I could go way in with psychological forgiveness. We're going to come back to that. But I just wanted to just put the idea out there that when it comes to forgiveness, we are dealing with just the facts that something was done, and there's acknowledgement that it has been done, and then there's a decision on how to move forward when it comes to the consequence of that offense. But then there's also the aspects of our mind, will, and our emotions. We have, through the power of God, God has given us the will to decide to forgive, because that's what He commands. Also because it's good for us. It is how we are forgiven, and it brings healing to us, to our souls, and it brings a refresher to our spirits when we're able to release and let things go. But there are some aspects of psychological forgiveness that sometimes we try to bypass that is really unhealthy, especially when we're trying to force that on someone else without acknowledging the fact that some things are taking place, even on a cellular level, when it comes to releasing something on a psychological plane. All right. And then the third aspect of forgiveness, or the third type or viewpoint of forgiveness from the human experience, is relational forgiveness. And here is where it is very important for us to address the fact that Just because a judicial forgiveness has taken place and a psychological forgiveness is taking place, it does not always mean that a relational forgiveness is going to look the same. Going back to what I said earlier about porch relationships, kitchen relationships, bedroom relationships, mailbox, we just stand up at the street. At the mailbox, we might run into each other at the mailbox, but you don't actually come on the property. That kind of thing, not to be, not to act, bougie or act like nothing crazy with nobody. But when it comes to relational forgiveness, we have to acknowledge the fact that relational forgiveness has some requirements. Especially if that relational forgiveness looks like reconciliation. All right. Relational forgiveness could mean I can be cordial with you. But relational forgiveness could also mean I don't wish you any harm. I just know that vengeance belongs to the Lord. I love you with the love of God. I want you to do better because you can and you should. And I forgive you while you are down the road and up underneath the jail. All right? I forgive you. I pray that you will have an encounter with the Lord that will change your life while you up underneath the jail. All right? It's just certain things. Some people do not belong in close vicinity to you. Especially if the person is unrepentant about something that makes them harmful to others. All right. But even when it is not anything so that we may consider traumatic, there are still just everyday commitments to ways of communicating that if a person cannot commit to those things and be willing to respect what your needs are or what your boundaries are, you may not be able to have a reconciliation with that person that will take you back to where you ever were before. But then there are situations where a forgiveness can take place and a reconciliation can take place that takes people into a deeper relationship, that takes people into a more honest and authentic space, that takes people into a powerful connection. This can be in an intimate partner relationship that takes you from being someone that I'm like, I don't know about you. I think you might need to stay back, to being someone who is the closest person in your life for a long time. Or even within families, being able to walk through those areas of forgiveness and acknowledge things that were offenses, that did damage, and walk through and allow the psychological forgiveness to take place, and walking through what it means to have expectations about interactions moving forward. These are things that can bring people into a much closer space because we are clearing the way for health. We are clearing the way for love to take root and to grow and be fruitful. One of the examples that I love to use when I am explaining the importance of forgiveness, and that I often like to think about for myself when I am like shifting, transitioning, moving from one season to the next in different aspects of life, is to think of life as a suitcase, and how you arrive in a particular season of your life with bags that you have, in some cases, intentionally packed with knowledge and tools and coping and just your arsenal of things that keep you in a sound mind. But then there are other things that you didn't decide to pack, but you ran into them along the way and you put them in your bag as a part of your experiences. And while you're in a particular season of life, you may, kind of rummage through your bag and kind of move things around so you can fit things. But there's something about going to a new place or going to travel to somewhere you've never been before, somewhere that might be a lot different from where you are now, where you don't need to just kind of like push things around and make more space to put more stuff in. It's kind of where you need to actually stop and take an inventory of everything is in that suitcase. What do you need to completely empty the suitcase out and just pick up those few items that, okay, these are real gems that I experienced along the way. I need these in my bag. So I'm gonna fold them up nice and neat. I'm gonna put them here. But everything else is cleared out for the space for the new. These other things, well, what do I do with them? Sometimes you may open a suitcase that you haven't used in a long time and you're like, what in the world? I forgot I even bought this. What is this? If you don't unpack your bag right away. And if you're someone who has a lot of different suitcases. If you're like me, I'm hard on suitcases, and then in the past, I bought cheap suitcases. So it's like, I'm too hard on stuff to be buying cheap stuff. So I have not kept suitcases for a long time. In the past 10 years, I've gone through a lot of different suitcases. And it's not like I have traveled that much, but I've traveled enough to tear up a couple of suitcases. So because I'm kind of hard on my bags, I am doing inventory maybe a little bit more often than someone who actually has some really good stuff and they travel a lot. But when that person gets ready to go someplace that they need to pack light so that they won't be weighed down in their new experience by a bunch of crap from the last couple of journeys that they took, that is very much what it is like sometimes when things happen that cause us to go into some serious, heavy, and deep repenting to God ourselves, receiving his forgiveness, actually pausing long enough to process different things that have happened to us, different offenses that have been done towards us from other people. But another really important part that sometimes we overlook or don't speak about is the aspect of forgiving ourselves. Sometimes when you are in a new space and you've grown and you've learned, you look back and you're like, why did I do that? Like, I put myself through that. I really could have avoided that. But if you get stuck there, you don't get to enjoy the beauty of being in a better place, of being someone who is stronger, someone who is wiser, someone who is more honest, who is more loving, who has more integrity. If we don't allow ourselves the space to actually acknowledge, like, that was not good, we can't experience forgiveness of ourselves. And when we can't experience forgiveness of ourselves, we're just packing down more and more and more shame into our suitcases. And when we do that, it makes it very, very hard to actually take a good look at what is there and at what needs to be removed. We kind of just push it aside. I don't want to look at that because I got all these other good, nice, shiny things here that I need to put in my bag. But we push those things that need to be put before God to the side. So I'm already at 39 minutes, and I know that I'm going to split this into two, but I'm just getting started. I'm literally saying to you in this video that when it comes to forgiveness, there's judicial, there's psychological, and there is relational, and those three are very important for us to understand, acknowledge, and intentionally walk towards. And I'm coming from the point of view that forgiveness is a spiritual requirement, and that like anything that God has called us to do, that is good and that is for his glory, and that helps us to be pleasing to him, that we don't have to do it alone, that he helps us to do it. And so I'll end with Philippians 2:13, which I actually have on my wall in several different versions because I feel like I need it for even just everyday things sometimes, but especially for my walk with God when it comes to just being obedient every day to what he wants me to do, and being able to get over failures or missteps and still be strong in the Lord and the power of his might to do and be what he's called me to do and be. It's Philippians 2:13. And it says, for it is God who is working in you, both to will and to work according to his good purpose. That is it in the Christian Standard Bible. I'm going to read all of them to you guys, though. And then in the KJV, it is, for it is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure. All right, and then the ESV is, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. But my favorite of all of them is the New Living Translation. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. God is working in you, giving you the desire, because it starts with the desire, wanting to do the right thing, and then the power to do what pleases him. Think about that for a moment. For forgiveness and just anything in your life, because something just came to my mind for me. What is something that you know that God wants you to do? What is an area that you know that you need to change? What is a pattern you know that you need to break? What is a habit you know that you need to build in order to do what God wills for you to do? Do what he's placed in your heart for you to do. Do what he's given you instruction to do in his word. Do what the Spirit of God is nudging at your heart for you to do. Those things that the enemy of our souls fight against. What is one of those things for you? Because I want you to think about that thing, and then I want you to remember Philippians 2:13. If you are someone who has given your life to Christ, who has said, Lord, I not only accept you as my Savior, who saved me from my sins and from the curse of sin and death, but I accept you as my Lord, and I want your plan for my life. But maybe certain things may come to mind that you may struggle with, and maybe that you struggled with for a long time. I want you to remember when you think about those things, including forgiveness, that God, even just by you sitting here watching this video, that God is working in you, giving you the desire. Wanting to do the right thing is miracle number one, because you can be in a space in your life where you don't want to do the right thing for whatever reason. It could be because you're discouraged. It could be because you're weary in well-doing. It could be because you have just fallen so deep in sin that you're just tired. Or it could just be because maybe you're not tired in sin, but God is still knocking at the door of your heart, and you know that he has a call on your life and that he has work for you to do in this earth. And you want to say yes because you just know, like, okay, I need to just go ahead and surrender, but you don't feel like you can do it. But you have the desire to do it. That's where it starts. Even if you feel like, no, I really don't want to do it, you're sitting here listening to me. You want to. It's something in you that wants to do the right thing. And understand that that's not because you're a good guy or a good girl. It is God working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. So when it comes to forgiveness, you're not out here by yourself, because I know that there are things that people are going to have to forgive that are the unthinkable. And the people who have done those things, it does not absolve them of the damage that was done to you. But in order for you to be free, and in order for you to freely be forgiven as well, you have to walk through what it means to forgive. And so that's why I feel like it is so important for you to know that you don't have to spiritual bypass what was done to you in your life, whether it was from childhood or whether it just happened in this very moment. You don't have to spiritual bypass and psych yourself out, Jedi mind trick yourself that it wasn't done. Because the first part of forgiveness is acknowledging that an offense was taking place, and that offense was not done to you based upon your worth. It was not done to you based upon your value, or any of those things. The offense was done to you because of the sin in the heart of the person that offended you, or and vice versa. For those who feel, I have offended someone so greatly that I can't even face it. Like I can't even think of it. The sin that you did wasn't because of your worth or your value. You were made in the image of God. You love God. I mean, God loves you, whether you love him or not. And you are the apple of his eye. And the offense that you did was because of sin. And you may have made decisions that allowed you to sink deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into sin to the point where you're very well conscious of the things that you're doing. It's still because of sin. It's not because of your worth or your value. And wanting to get those things right and to come up out of the hole that you dig for yourself when you continue to fall deeper and deeper in sin. God begins that work in you by giving you a desire to even come to him about it. So remember that today. Nothing is too hard for God. There are no requirements from God for you to be in denial about anything that has happened to you in your life. But there is a space, and there is a requirement to forgive, and there is a space for you to come to him with your things, honestly, and allow him to heal you, to open the eyes of your understanding, to give you the knowledge that you need to have a vision for a way forward in your life, so that the offenses that have been done against you or the offenses that you've done to others don't have to define who you are or how you walk out the rest of your life. You have a choice, but you also have God's power to rely on if you will turn and come to him. All right, I'm going to end there. I'm absolutely going to have to come back and talk a little bit more about judicial, psychological, and relational forgiveness. I would love to walk through some of the steps that come with forgiveness as it relates to, like, how do we move forward with someone into the future or not, based upon what has taken place. But I won't even try to do that here. I just wanted to kind of build a foundation and get started. I don't think I've ever done a 48-minute long video and posted it, but I actually might do that this time. I'm going to listen back to this because I tend to go off sometimes in ways that when I listen back, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that connected. I didn't go too far to the left or to the right. Or I might be like, you said that 5 times. Cut out 3 of them, leave 2. So we'll see how long this video ends up being, but if I listen back to it and it's cool, I will upload it as it is. At any rate, I thank you so much for tuning into my channel. I'm happy to be back today. And I am going to post this video. I have so many videos that I have filmed and not edited and not posted because it just hasn't been an urgent thing. In some ways, some of it has been procrastination because it just hasn't fit to me in the grand scheme of like, is this even important enough for me to, I tend to do that, but there's been a build-up with this forgiveness thing. And I've been studying it a lot. I've been using it a lot with clients, and I've been walking through my own process of forgiveness. So it was just kind of like, girl, go on and get that one to the people, because you just never know who you could help. And someone needs it right now. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, check the description box for the resources, and subscribe, tap the notifications bell, give this video a thumbs up, and hit share it with your friends. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.